If you're a technical or product leader, I know you've probably heard a million pitches for the next great strategy tool. But today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to look at the Nasdanika product management model. This is about treating product strategy not as some fluffy marketing exercise, but as a rigorous, federated reasoning substrate. Basically, we're looking at a system that replaces exhausting rhetoric with solid engineering structure, giving you a completely traceable foundation for your decision-making. Here is our roadmap for this briefing. We'll start with the structural problem, move into inverting push to pull, cover the core elements in federation, look at 3 concrete use cases, briefly touch on the agentic execution roadmap, and wrap up with how you can actually engage with this today. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the structural problem. Technical leaders, you're going to recognize this pain immediately. In almost any large organization, you've got hundreds of developers building thousands of overlapping internal tools. There's literally no shared discovery mechanism, so duplication of effort is just everywhere, and it's completely invisible. And worse, when you finally do discover that overlap, how is it resolved? Usually it's a political fight at a steering committee where the loudest voice wins. And here's the real kicker. When you try to point AI at these portfolio questions, it completely stalls out. You know, large language models thrive on structure. When they are faced with a fragmented mass of text, unstructured roadmaps, and sprawling wikis, their utility drops to pretty much zero. So the takeaway here is that this is a fundamental structural problem. No amount of shiny new roadmap software or standardized Confluence templates is going to fix it. Why? Because underneath it all, the artifacts themselves don't federate across teams, and they simply don't carry rigorous, durable attribution. Which brings us to Section 2, inverting push to pull. This is where the paradigm really shifts. Think about how most product strategy work operates today. It's a push model, right? Every capability owner, whether that's an internal platform team or an outside vendor, competes to push their narrative. Their pitch is totally optimized for whoever happens to be in the room, and decisions are made based on who packaged their slide deck the best. The Nasdanika model flips this entirely to a pull model. In this setup, the consumer clearly articulates their concerns. We're talking specific goals, needs, and pain points. And then, capabilities are pulled by those concerns. It forces a total inversion of how a product is mapped out and justified. For my fellow engineers out there, this concept is going to sound incredibly familiar. It's the exact same shift as moving from synchronous push to reactive streams with back pressure, where consumers actually signal demand and producers respond to it. Or if you're working in inference systems, it's like shifting from forward chaining to backward chaining. You start from the goal and trace back to the facts that satisfy it. This capability framework operates on that exact same underlying principle. It takes all the guesswork out of the equation. Okay, moving on to Section 3, Core Elements and Federation. Let's look under the hood. Take a look at this formal, typed graph. It is elegantly simple, but so explicit. Personas have concerns. Those concerns are strictly categorized as goals, needs, or pain points. Capabilities are then designed to address those specific concerns. And finally, providers supply the capabilities. This strict ontology is the secret sauce that allows the entire system to scale without turning into a totally ambiguous mess. Every single element here is treated with the rigor of version-controlled code. You can't just casually say, oh yeah, we built this. No, it captures exactly who promised what, supported by what specific evidence, under whose authority, and at what exact lifecycle stage it is right now. If a capability exists, it absolutely must have a direct line back to a persona's concern. This gives you a perfectly traceable lineage for every single product decision. And because we are modeling this as code, it renders beautifully. Check out this generated documentation site. It shows how an external persona's concerns are structurally queryable and visually explicit. This isn't just a paragraph buried in a slide deck that's going to be out of date tomorrow. It's a constantly updated, derived view of the absolute current truth. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. To make this work across a massive enterprise, you do not need some giant centralized database or a bottlenecked admin tool. These elements are federated as text-based Maven artifacts living right in your version control system. Every assertion carries provenance and a defined validity period, and domains merge seamlessly just by shared identity. A consumer's view is just whichever set of models they choose to import, which means it integrates perfectly into the engineering workflows you already use. All right, let's make this real. Section 4, 3 concrete use cases. First up, surfacing duplication.
By loading the assemblies of many independent teams together into this graph, overlapping capabilities, the ones addressing the exact same concerns for the exact same personas, naturally appear right next to each other in the model. This is huge. It means deduplication and consolidation become a structural, analytical task. You just read the graph. It's no longer a political turf war between team leads. Second, capability prioritization. When you prioritize using this model, it's strictly driven by evidence, not by whoever is shouting the loudest. Prioritization becomes completely bulletproof because the trail from a proposed capability back to the persona's concern, its supporting evidence, and the asserting authority, well, it's a direct, queryable path. You aren't guessing what matters, you're verifying it against actual data. And third, generating tailored executive summaries. Because this structure cleanly separates the what from the how, an AI agent can read the graph and generate perfectly calibrated summaries. Think about it. An architect gets the deep dependency footprint, while an executive gets the high-level portfolio context. Both are 100% accurate, derived from the exact same underlying model, and nobody had to spend their weekend manually formatting a new presentation. Let's move to Section 5, the Agentic Execution Roadmap. So where is this all heading? The product management model we just explored is actually the first concrete consumer of a future agentic execution stack. That stack maps out things like NSML for declarative model transformations, Waypoint for flow orchestration, and OpsGraph for a typed execution substrate. But I want to be crystal clear here so we know what's real today versus what's on the horizon. These specific agentic execution components we just mentioned, they are designed and documented, but they are not yet implemented. However, the federated metamodel substrate, the graph of personas, concerns, capabilities, and evidence, that is fully shipped. It is free, it's open source, and it is highly useful as a reasoning substrate for your organization today, right now, regardless of that future stack. And finally, Section 6, Ways to Engage. If you want to test this out, you've got 3 distinct entry points. First, you can literally just take the metamodel's vocabulary, paste it into your favorite GenAI assistant today, and ask it to output your strategy using personas, concerns, and capabilities. Easy. Second, you can fork the Nasdanika GitHub template repository to start authoring your own model. Seriously, you can have your first rendered page up in about 30 minutes. Or third, just dive into the documentation site and evaluate the design discussions yourself before you commit any resources. So, as we wrap up this explainer, you really have to ask yourself a hard question. Is your organization's strategy built on a traceable structure? Or is it still being driven by whoever has the loudest voice in the room? Are you ready to move from exhausting rhetoric to the rigorous discipline of engineering structure? The model is there whenever you're ready to make that shift. Thanks for joining me, and I really hope this gives you a powerful new framework for thinking about your own product strategy.